While we're getting set up, let me tell you a little bit about my team. I oversee the consumer analytics and research team at AOL Inc. And in case you're maybe not a marketer or dealing with digital media or a media buyer, sometimes it's not clear what AOL Inc. actually is. So yes, we're still around. We're not. AOL is maybe what you thought about it 10 or 15 years ago. And since the spin out from Time Warner several years ago, it's really a different company. One way to think about it is that there are three lines of business. One is premium content coming from our owned and operated brands, examples of which are Huffington Post, Engadget, MapQuest, TechCrunch, and my team supports those brands. Another line of our business is AOL Networks, which is our performance-based media platform and network, and our ad tech stack. And the third is video. And in fact, the last ComScore numbers, due to our acquisition of AdaptTV, we actually beat Google in number of video ads served in September. So it's a really different business, and it's not just the AOL branded stuff. But that being said, I think if we're being honest here, which I always am, we're really behind in mobile. And for the past 2 years that I've been at AOL leading this group, we've sort of overinvested in the types of mobile insights, research, and big data analytics projects that we've been doing, because that's where our brands get inspiration for new products, new ideas, and how they can continue to kind of catch up. So what I've done today is taken a few different things from a few different of those initiatives and wanted to share them with you here. The first is, we'll just start with a question and kind of make this a little lighter. So what's the first thing that you reach for in the morning? So please raise your hand if the first thing that you reach for was your coffee. Anyone? How about your partner? Usually there's a couple. There we go. What about your mobile phone? Almost everyone. Now, I notice a few of you didn't raise your hands to anything, and there's only one more option left. So by process of elimination, we can say that you probably touched yourself. You should participate next time. All right, so the reason why this happens is because these are habits. We've had phones long enough now and smartphones long enough to where, for most of us, we've established those habits. And it's your alarm clock. You check your email at night, you check Facebook, you check headlines to make sure you know what's going on. And it's probably the last thing that you touch before you go to bed too. Despite all of that, how many times or for how many years have we been hearing this? And I'm not suggesting that geolocation services or geofencing or showrooming or any of that stuff is not important. It is, and there's a lot of opportunity there. But what tends to happen is the marketplace tends to talk about this stuff too much. The technology tends to lead the conversation. I'm not a technologist, and it's not a passion of mine, but what is a passion of mine is really understanding people. So a lot of what I'm going to tell you about today is not technology, but it's about how people are using their devices, how they've internalized those behaviors into habits, and what expectations they have for brands. When you think about what tends to get discussed, though, it's what technology offers, or the potential for technology. And again, I'm not saying that's not important, but I feel like we've talked about that a lot. And I also feel like the conventional wisdom is often wrong. So what my team likes to do is we like to sort of needle the groups that we work with and challenge them to think not bounded by the sort of shackles of conventional wisdom. So we always ask this question, what are we missing? And one of the things that we did in working really closely with Joel Rubinson, who was very central to the next few slides here, and a great thought partner with us, in addition to Insights Now, which is our research partner for this one, is that we did a project where we measured the entire mobile experience. We did that via 3 techniques. There was a qual phase, video diaries with a small number of participants, a quant survey, 1,000 people. We captured 3,000 mobile moments. Those moments were those moments excluded text, voicemail, and email. So we're basically talking about mobile data that's not text, like browsers and apps. And that was basically for ages 18 to 54. We married that data with a metered panel. So it's really a single source. We asked people what they were doing, and then we also looked at their actual observed behavior to try to cross-validate what they were saying in the survey. So that was very useful. What we measured was everything. What were they doing at the time that they were using their phone? Where were they? What were their motivations? What were their goals? What specifically were they doing? What behavior did they have? So were they using the Huffington Post app, or were they looking at Facebook? And it was well beyond just the AOL stuff. It was everything. Well, we found some really interesting stuff. The first one is mobile is oftentimes actually not mobile. And I think actually we don't do ourselves in the industry much service by calling it mobile, because mobile means it's out and about. And what we found is that about 68% of all the minutes that people spend with their phones, this is just smartphones, happen at home. So think about that for a second. 2/3 of all minutes that people spend with their smartphones happens at home. Why in the world are we just talking about geofencing and geolocation services and that kind of stuff? Again, I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but what I'm saying is if you stop there, you're leaving a ton of opportunity for engaging people on the table. And I'm going to talk about it's not just for branding, and we'll get to that in a minute. We could stop there, and I think this reframes how a marketer should think about how they use mobile. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep going. We also did a segmentation. And instead of segmenting the audience, what we decided to do was segment the moments. Because one of the things that's an absolute human truth is that your phone serves different roles over the course of the day, over the course of a week and a month. It does different things for you. So I think it's a mistake to do segmentation on mobile users. I know it's been done before. I just don't think it's particularly useful. So we segmented those 3,000 mobile moments. These were the 7 segments. Let me describe these real quickly. Accomplish is all about your need to check something off your box. For example, my sister lives in Seattle. Her birthday is December 6th. I got to get her a present. She's really into cooking. I'm going to buy her a cookbook on Amazon and just have it sent there before her birthday so that, I don't look like an asshole. That's accomplish. Even though I'm shopping, it's an accomplished motivation. The next one is socialize. You don't know what socialize is. It's all about the need to connect with other people. It's not necessarily using Facebook or Twitter. You have to think about the motivation, not the behavior. The motivation is connecting. The next one is prepare, and it's really where the phone is sort of a means to an end. I have a dinner reservation tonight. I've never been there before. I need to figure out where to go so that I can take the right subway or whatever. Me time is all about unwinding, escaping, and relaxing. That might be games, it might be news, it might be any number of behaviors, but that's the motivation. Discover we almost called learn because that's really what it is. It's about finding something new. Those Wikipedia moments where you sort of go down the rabbit hole and you sort of start to click on things and then you're 20 clicks in and you're on a totally different topic. Shop is really all about the transaction, but again, not in the sense that I'm checking something off my list, but that I'm needing to make a purchase and I'm using the phone to facilitate that. So I might be in a store and I might be showrooming and looking up prices. It doesn't necessarily mean the transaction has to occur on the phone. And the last one is express. It's kind of, I think, the partner to socialize because it's all about expressing your own creativity, expressing an opinion. So think sharing an Instagram photo or making a comment on a site like Huffington Post, that sort of thing. We said 68% of all the minutes that people spend with their smartphones happen at home. 60% of the moments that we measured were at home too. So there's some nice cross-validation between the observed data and the survey data. So somewhere around 2/3. Not voice, not text, not email. Let me go a little bit deeper to explain what I mean by separating the behaviors from the motivations. And let's take Amazon. Where do you think Amazon shows up on this? Any guesses? Shop. Yes, it does show up in shop. When you look at all of the shop moments, the shop motivations, we do see lots of instances of retailers like Amazon. But here's the thing. We also see it show up in me time. We see it show up in accomplish. Again, I need to buy a present for my sister. I'm going to just go ahead and check that off my list. I'm really into video games. The PS4 is coming out. Want to see what games there are. I'm just going to go on Amazon and sort of have a little escape, or maybe build my wish list, or figure out, is there something cool that I can do that I should be thinking about to indulge my passion? What about weather? Those native weather apps, or even something like the Weather Channel, where do you think that falls? Prepare, yeah. We also see it under accomplish. I need to, I'm shopping, I need to figure out if I need to bring an umbrella or should I just blow it off because the weather's going to get too bad? Absolutely. But it also shows up in the others as well. Why would weather show up in me time? How many people here have more than one city loaded onto your native mobile app, your weather app? Everybody. Why is that? It's probably your hometown. You want to see how your family's doing. Maybe you're taking a vacation in a couple weeks. You want to escape and see what the weather is like in the Bahamas or something like that. This is even true of something as sort of mundane as the Domino's Pizza app. The only thing that you can do with that is buy a pizza. So it's shop, but why do you buy a pizza? You're watching the game, you're watching a movie, that's me time. You're buying a pizza is fueling me time. Okay? So it's less about the behavior and more about the motivation. This is really, really important because if we just stopped at the digital analytics and observing what people were doing, I think we would miss this point. The point here is that when you look at all three of these behaviors, sometimes these people are all engaged in the same motivation. If you're a brand, it works the opposite way. If you're Amazon, sometimes people are accomplishing stuff, sometimes they're engaged in me time, sometimes they're shopping, etc. So it's kind of important to know what the path is so that we can serve up a personalized or semi-personalized and relevant experience based on those triggers that people are able to sort of show for us. Which do you think is the biggest? Any guesses? A few guesses. You know the way segmentation works is that you don't really identify the segments beforehand. You let the data reveal what the segments are and then you just name them. But had we done that, and again, if I were being completely honest, I probably would have said accomplish is the biggest thing that I would have guessed. Just because, again, I think we tend to think about it, and I tend to think about it from the industry's perspective, which is all about getting things done. I'm out on the go, I'm commuting, I'm all of this kind of stuff. So we were really surprised to see that me time was the biggest by quite a big margin, almost half. But remember, I told you, 68% of all the minutes that people spend with their phones happen at home. When do you have time to engage in me time? Unless you're goofing off at work or something, it's probably when you're on the couch. So it's not surprising that me time is such a big driver. When you combine the at-home and the me time, now we're really starting to reframe what the mobile opportunity for marketers is. And it's much, much greater than just the geofencing and all of that kind of stuff. Here's the problem. Brands don't do very well in me time right now. Look at the gray bars. Don't pay attention to the numbers, that's just, look at the relative size of the gray bars. The red bars are what we just looked at. So me time is the biggest. The gray bar is a quasi ad effectiveness measure. It's a composite measure of a bunch of stuff we captured in the survey when there was a brand present, whether via an ad or a branded app or whatever. Look at how brands don't do very well in me time. They do really well in accomplish. Think about mobile creative. Click here, download this, swipe this, tap that. Because we, I think as an industry, tend to think of people wanting to do that sort of stuff when they're engaged with their phone. And that's true some of the time, but when they're engaged in me time, it's really, really different. And brands don't do well. So what could we do better? Well, let's look at the desired ad qualities, and it's all about the things that they're motivated by. Entertain me, make me laugh, be relevant to my interests. That's what people want from brands when they're in me time. Incidentally, this is what people want when they're watching TV. And if you're doing it at home and you're doing it on the couch, there's actually a lot of overlap between how people watch TV and how people use their phone from a motivation standpoint. All right, that's all about smartphones, and that was one piece of research called 7 Shades of Mobile. If you're interested in seeing any of that, you can visit our site. It's advertising.aol.com. I try to publish a lot of our research and make it open. So feel free to check that out or let me know. That's true for smartphones. What about for tablets? Well, I think we all know that tablets peak during prime time hours. This came from this is not our data, this came from secondary data. But this is our own data across all of our owned and operated sites. What you're looking at is the day of the week across the top and the time of the day down along the side. And you can see for desktop, which is the one on the left, basically people are using our sites in the desktop mostly during working hours, but really during waking hours. Same thing with mobile, really during waking hours, peaks a little bit in the evening. Look what happens with tablets. It's all in the evening and on the weekends. That's because tablets, even more so than smartphones, are home devices. Only 18% of tablets have cell phone plans enabled. People don't carry them around. And especially if you think about a place not like New York where you're in your car and you commute, a tablet in the car sort of it's not a great experience. So people mostly leave those at home and they use them when they get home. And we see that across all of our sites. We also like to reach out to our early adopters from time to time. Remember I said we had the Engadget and TechCrunch users? Those guys are early adopters. So what we did is reach out to them and said, you guys have had tablets for a long time, at least a year. What do you do? Well, most everybody uses their tablets during TV commercials. If I'm an advertiser that spends a lot on TV, this terrifies me because there's no attention qualifier for Nielsen ratings. It's just the opportunity to see. But if your eyes aren't on your device by the time the commercials come on, they definitely will be. They doing a lot of stuff, but what we found was interesting is that they're doing a lot of shopping on their tablets. And it's almost to the degree that tablets have become sort of the modern day version of the printed catalog. You're using it to browse, you're using it to get ideas, just as you would that restoration hardware catalog or whatever your favorite retailer is. People are using their tablets like that, but they're also discovering products sort of serendipitously as well. And that's absolutely true, especially true for our early adopters. Shopping is really the killer app for tablets. I think there's a lot of missed opportunity here. Next thing that we did, and the next initiative is, remember I said that AOL Networks was a big part of our business. It's a performance-based advertising network. So what we do is run media on behalf of our clients and we optimize against conversion events, which might be an e-commerce sale, it might be configure an auto on Ford.com, it might be apply for a credit card. So what we did is we took 500 billion digital impressions across 3 devices and 100 million conversion events and asked the University of Virginia to do some really interesting analysis on those. We have a partnership with them, so we do this from time to time. Well, here's what we found. Not surprisingly, mobile, as we just saw, tends to peak in the evening. And we absolutely saw that when you look at the impressions and sort of the timestamp on the impressions. But we found something really fascinating, which is especially on the weekends, more conversions tend to come from mobile. 39% of all conversion events on the weekends come from mobile devices. I think that's fascinating. Because what it means is that people aren't just using their phones and their tablets to sort of browse and to sort of check things out. They're actually doing stuff. And every time they do that conversion event, it fires a pixel to ad.com and we capture that. And that's how we see this sort of pattern. But here's the other thing. We know that they're converting, but they're not doing it in a similar way to how people using a desktop are. So what this looks at is the lag between an impression being served and the time until the conversion event happens for one individual. And as you can see, and this has been well known for the sort of web business for a long time, there's sort of very little lag between when an impression was served and when a person converts. Now, a lot of people never convert, and that's why conversion rates are low. That's not what this measures. What this measures is a lag time. But look at mobile. It's stretched out over the course of a couple of days. This suggests to me that people are using their phones to discover, to sort of come across stuff that maybe they hadn't before. And they're sort of filing that away and not necessarily doing it right then, but they're doing it within a couple of days. Look at the percent of conversion events happening by category. For telco, it's 37% of those conversion events are happening from mobile devices. Not surprisingly, because you're sort of on that device and you're doing that. But look at autos. Over a quarter. Travel, 22%. Tremendous number of conversions are coming from mobile devices across all categories. They're just converting a little bit differently. All right, so key takeaways. First of all, I think it's important to remember conventional wisdom is often wrong. I wouldn't necessarily listen to the industry. I wouldn't necessarily remember a lot of the trade press. Second is, mobile isn't always mobile, and remember that me time at home dynamic. It's absolutely a huge underserved opportunity. Mobile does fulfill different shopping needs, everything from discovering new stuff to researching and going deep and to actually transacting, as our ad.com analysis demonstrated. And I just think mobile advertising needs to evolve in response. It's not a great experience now most of the time. And I think part of the problem is we're relying on the conventional wisdom that we've learned from years and years of developing ads and brand experiences for the web, not recognizing that this is an entirely new medium. So thank you.